Now that we have our drawing complete, we're going to mix out our 4 different values for the first pass on our painting. We're going to stick to the same colors we used last week. That's your alizarin crimson, your viridian green, and titanium white. I'm squeezing out probably, thumbnail amount. You may need more, and that's good practice. If you end up needing more and you have to mix halfway through, that's totally okay. It is difficult to find the exact same mix, but that's really good practice for you. So now we want these 4 different values that we're working with. So let's see. I'm going to start by mixing my grayish color, my darkest dark. Remember how we did this before? Pretty equal parts of our red and green. So depending on how much of each color you put in, you might end up with a slightly red tone, or you might end up with a slightly green tone. And I can see a little bit in the edges there. I can see it's starting to look a little bit green. I'm going to zoom in for you. See that just slightly greenish hue in there? Let's pull in a little bit more red and see if we can get it to balance out a little bit. Still seeing some green hues. Just pulling a little bit more red. And make sure you get it really mixed in. It's hard to see when your mixture is so dark. And remember the technique here, I push the paint to the side and then I just kind of smush it down with my knife. Smush, push it. Okay, this does still have a slight green tint to it, but I'm feeling like it's pretty good. It's close to neutral, close to in between the 2 colors. So let's stick with this. This is just fine. Let me zoom back out for you. Okay. So we've got our darkest dark here. And I think when it comes to our painting, there aren't really any absolute blacks in here. So let's add just that tiny bit of white to get us started. So we're actually starting with a really dark gray. We're not going to start with our darkest black. Okay, that is a fine dark gray. It's getting a little dry, so I actually have a sponge here. I'm going to pick up a little bit of water from my palette. You can use a brush, any way that you want to transfer a little bit of water to your acrylics. It's just fine. And it can be hard when your paint starts getting dry and gloopy. It can be hard to mix water in. You just need to really work with it. And try to work fast. Acrylics dry with time, so the longer you take mixing them, the more dry they'll become before you're actually painting. Okay, just a little bit more water. I really don't want these to dry. And see how it's getting kind of, I don't know if you can see, sort of chunky, separated. That's the water. It's really not wanting to mix in. But if I just keep at it, it'll loosen up here. There we go. That's a good mixture. Okay, that's going to be our darkest gray. Now let's pull off about half of that. That's going to be our next slightly lighter gray. So I'm taking just that much paint, if you can see that. I'm going to add that in. And I like the idea of mixing all of these out ahead of time so you can compare values. Make sure that the steps between values is enough, that the steps are big enough. That seems like a nice gray. Okay, let's leave that. I'm going to pull about half of that aside and add another amount of white that's about the same as before. I'm actually starting to think already that maybe that's too dark. Let's add a little bit more light in there. Okay, that's nice. That's a big change from there to there. Now let's try to make this as big of a change as those are. So I'm going to add in quite a bit more white here. Okay, that's going all right. Yeah. Now, for our last value, I'm going to pick up some of this really dark mixture and just a tiny bit, and then a good amount of my white, because I really want it to be close to white. That's pretty good. I think that's good. This still feels like too close to this one, too similar, so I'm going to add even more white here. Good, that's better. Hope you can really see those changes in value. Don't forget to clean off your palette knife. There, now you can see the palette and the painting. Great.